How you doing, brothers and sisters? Let me fix the camera. Is that better? I haven't made a video in a while. Uh, after I had done an interview with Zen Garcia. Um, it's called Anthony Fusco, Definition Truth. I was very heavily attacked in the spiritual world, but God, through thousands and thousands of hours of studying and asking and praying, has shown me the code of all this, and I've been trying to share it with people for a few years now. It's the definitions of the words, what the enemy does. God reveals to us in many ways. Each word has many meanings, and when God speaks, He uses more than one meaning, and that's what the enemy copies, and that they use it as a weapon against us. So, like an example of, like the circle of the earth. If you look up the word circle, type in on Google definition of circle, and or yeah, definition of circle, and then go to the free online dictionary. Uh, and it'll come up and read all the definitions, and you won't believe the things you see. I mean, it literally tells you. Uh, and you have to scroll down to read them all. A ring, circlet, a crown, to enclose in a circle, encircle, bypass, evade, revolve, but then you go down. And it literally will say um, arena, domain, uh, dimension, round, disc, rotating mechanism, band, loop, perimeter, halo, uh, school, club, order, class, society, crowd, assembly, fellowship, fraternity, clique, sphere, world, area, range, field, like the beast of the field, scene, orbit, realm, compass, square and compass, enclose, belt, curve, surround, ring, circumscribe, encircle, spiral, rotate, whirlpool. It tells you everything, and that's not just for this word; it's for every word. The word CERN, and this is what they're doing. They're telling us everything. They're not lying to us. They're going by the letter of the law, the Old Testament, and that's what Satan believes in. That's what he wants us all to be bound by, is the old contract. Because by the old contract, we're all guilty. We're all under sin. And only through Jesus of the New Testament, the new contract, his new testimony, can we be saved by his grace and mercy, by his blood. He already paid the debt. Sin, debt, trespass, they're all the same meanings. And this applies to the courtrooms big time, because they're playing these word games with us. Everything that's going on in there, we've consented to. There's some Supreme Court justice even, and he's only the Supreme Court of a thing called the all capital United States. It's a corporation, and it only exists by belief. The map up there, it's all imaginary lines. It's not real. The only thing that makes it real is our belief in it. And this is the world of make believe. And that's why Jesus kept telling people, you are healed by your belief. You are saved by your belief. It's what you believe to be true. Why do you think government, mind, govern, control, meant, mind? Everything is told to us. And the word CERN literally means, with an E on the end. I found this in the Demon Dictionary, of course. It's an archaic word. And it literally, I don't know if you can see it. CERN, an obsolete name for a magic circle traced with a magician's wand to conjure demons. Alright, that's pretty interesting, huh? They just took the E off, CERN. And there's another thing you can look up, CERN with the E, Abbas, Abbas, giant. And it's an interesting thing. It's carved in, I think, in over in Scotland or in England, in that area. A giant carved in the hillside, and people still maintain it, and it has like an erection, and it's holding, I think, a club. It's insane. It's like a Nephilim giant. And this book's pretty good. I don't think this woman knows anything about like the CERN stuff, and she was just basically given definitions of all types of words. But I mean, it's just showing again how the meanings are telling us everything. And the same thing with the Mandela effect. It's not Mandela, it's mandala. They played the word game there. The letter, they changed one letter. They changed the E to an A, or the A to an E, either way. And it's a mandala. And what does that mean when you look it up? It's a magic circle. You know, they're opening up the pit. They're what they're trying to build is not just to bring the demons or devils here. They're trying to make the rainbow bridge, and which is basically, you know, when the Bible talks about people getting raptured or translated, they're trying to translate these devils into this reality to make them be able to operate physically in this realm. They have to be translated to a lower capacity or a higher capacity from like the second dimension, third dimension, so on. Something I wanted to show. If I can find it. Here it is. And that's when the angels who sinned came here. They had to leave their first estate, the place, but they also had to leave they had to change their bodies. They had to be translated to operate in this realm. They kept not their own habitation, their habits. Like what a nun wears, a habit, it's clothing or a garment. They left their vehicle, their body, and they had to have a new body to operate in this realm. Whether they can shapeshift and do that to come down in capacity, that, you know, I don't obviously know how that works. But it's the same thing they're doing to us in the courtrooms. But what I want to show you is, I've shown this in other videos. Look, the Iron Cross, the Catholic Church uses, you know, the Satanic Catholic Church, Vatican, Bates, means a prophet, a sorcerer, or a seer. You know, it's literally telling us they're the false prophet, the Pope. This Iron Cross, the cross, the Malta, Knights of Malta, in the second dimension. But in the third dimension, what is it? The pyramid without the capstone. They're telling us who they serve. You know, same thing with the Umbrella Corporation and that Resident Evil nonsense, where, you know, how they reveal everything. It's just two of these. You know, as above, so below. The Hegelian dialectic, and that's what the Apollyon, you know, the son Apollo, the son of Zeus, the son of Satan. He's the one coming, that they're their king. They're waiting to enthrone, to sit on the top of the pyramid. It's the good cop, bad cop scenario. The tree was of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, God has revealed so much to me about that, but should I get into it? Okay. In the court systems, first of all, court is a place when you can't resolve an issue in the private, you bring it into the public. And the court is not the building, is not the judge, it's the paperwork that the moving party or the plaintiff, well, I don't even like that word, plaintiffs make complaints, man makes claims. For more on the common law and how to use it correctly, check out Carl Lentz, Karl Lentz. He solved the mystery, the missing parts, to how to operate in common law. But again, it's a belief system. It's what you believe. Everything they're doing is by Old Testament. That's the rod of iron. The Bar Society is the rod of iron. And when they're in the courts, you know, they're sending out an invitation, a summons, and they're trying to get, when you answer it, when you make a plea, if you look up plea, another good site is Etymoline, ETYMONLINE.com. It gives the etymology, like the oldest meanings of the words. And in court, they're not playing so much the synonym game. They're using the words in their original meaning. They're being very precise and surgical with the words. So when they send out a summons, they're sending it to the legal person. Well, a legal person, what's the word person mean? Person comes from persona, that means a mask. That's why these people love the masks, like in Eyes Wide Shut. You'll see the mask used in everything in all these crazy movies, and also because the 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 wicked spirits of the deceased Nephilim, they wear people's bodies like masks. They hide behind them, and are controlling people. Um, but they send it to the legal person. Well, what's a person besides a mask? It also means, in their crazy world, it says it's an individual according to their rank in a society. What society? What rank? Well, it's the legal society. Your parents named you, but then after making the birth certificate, they created a legal name. Well, if you claim that's who you are, then they have control over you when you're using that. But you're not bound to that. In the second dimension, that you may be bound, but in the third dimension, man is dynamic. He's fluid. He can be whatever he wishes to be. So it's all in the writing. They're getting you to consent to go into this proceeding, and these local district courts are a joke. They're not even a court. They're courts of no record, Nisi Prius courts. It's not even a court. It's an administrative hearing. It's not a trial. It's a hearing, and they're getting you to agree. You even have to consent at the end. But in their world, silence equals consent. That's a maxim of law. And they use presumed consent. So if you don't rebut something, it stands as true. If I send you a bill in the mail, in their world, and then I send you a second notice saying you owe me $10,000, and then I make a complaint, not a claim, then we go to court. It'll be my court because I'm the moving party, and you've never rebutted it. Then technically I could win. Now it doesn't mean they're going to do that. They still may go by what's right, but when it's in their favor, when they're bringing in as the legal person, it's a hierarchy of that society. It's pyramidal. So in that world, the judge has his rank in the legal society, then the attorneys, and then way down at the bottom is what's called a defendant. And what's the role of a defendant in this act, in this play, is to defend himself. It's not to win. The best he can hope for is to not be destroyed or perish or, get out of there without losing too much. So you're playing the role of the defendant. You're not going in as a man. And the rules of the court are what the moving party brought in. That's why no constitution can be brought in, no common law, nothing else can be brought in. You've agreed to go into that play and play the role of defendant. You didn't answer the invitation stating the terms and conditions of your appearance. Like a rock band, if they got invited to play somewhere, they might request 10,000 gummy bears and they need all blue furniture in the room. You can send, instead of making a plea, because a plea means like you're supplicating yourself to a god or to a deity. A plea or a petition, a prayer. It's all the same thing. You're praying to them as gods. Like I said, start looking up words or even the etymology. Look up robe. Has meanings of rob. What's it? A magistrate, magi, wizard, magistrate. So what Satan had done, and like I said, I've already done this, so you can handle most issues with simple letter writing. You don't want to act like a child and say, no, I'm not doing this. That gives them the reason to bring you to a courthouse, not to a court. The court is the paper, courthouse, courtroom, building. Just like the church. The church isn't a building. That's called the church house. The church is the actual people. So, there's so much on this. I just wrote a book in 3 weeks that I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but it's like 1,200 pages describing all this, everything I've been shown. But what else? Oh, for the people that always wondered about the rhesus blood. Rhesus, it's the rhesus monkey. That's what they say. But if you look it up, it was a Thracian prince who was killed, and then his mother, brought him back to life, and he ruled from an underground cave. So it's like an antichrist figure. Um, just type in, definition or meaning of Rhesus or Prince Rhesus, and you can read the story of that. Um, and that guy, that scientist, I forget his name, that was holding up the two cards around his neck that says Bond 1 and man, you can't read the whole, but it probably says mandAla, not mandAla. But either way, he has those two signs, and Bond, number one. Number one definition. Go look up that. Go type in definition of Bond. We can do it right now. What does it say? Wait a minute. That computer's a little slow. So that's the code there. He's telling us, he's reaffirming what I'm telling you. It's Bond number 1. It's not James Bond number 1. I mean, it's a good guess, but it's really the number 1 definition. If that ever pulls it up, you can see it, or you can look it up. You can look it up for yourself. And what it meant, this world, this realm, this circle, like Dante's Infernos, the circles of hell, this realm that we're in is the realm of good and evil. So Satan, or the serpent, whoever it was in the garden, whether it was, I don't know if it was the devil himself or his son, Apollyon, which also, he has many names too, but he was the fruit of the tree. If you look up the word tree, it says a figure that branches from a single genealogical root. So that means one that came directly from God. Adam was a tree. He was in the garden. Um, Satan, a tree. He came directly from God. Now the fruit of the tree would be his children, like Apollyon, and if he has other ones, like Zeus having all these children. So that's what Adam and Eve ate of. Look up the word. Well, that's something else. So when before that, they were only bound by one law, was to not eat of that tree. They broke that law, but they were tricked. So because they broke the law, yes, they had to be punished. But because they were deceived, they didn't even know what a lie was yet. They didn't have the knowledge of good and evil. They only, knew what they actually were around and could see. They didn't know that there was lies and evil and wickedness. So that's why I believe we have an opportunity at redemption, is because, that we had to be given a fair trial, a choice, because of the serpent playing that trick on us, deceiving us. And he didn't necessarily lie, but he played the word game even then. But with the knowledge of good and evil, a person that's incompetent can't be judged. He's not of, or someone that's not of that society can't be judged by that society, like the legal society. If you're not a legal person, if you're not of the legal society, that's what they're making the presumption that you are. So you have to put it in writing, like, the word notice at top, and then you don't want to speak in their courts because they can't hear you. They can, if you're playing the role of defendant, you can, but you can't use their stuff. All their stuff is copyrighted material. It's not law, it's all code. What's code? Morse code. It's something so people not, within can understand it. And that's, legalese is literally a foreign language. So, like I said, listen to Carl Lentz for that stuff. I mean, he helped me a great deal with understanding the final piece of that, as well as tying it all in with what happened with Adam and Eve. And so when they like, you can't know what a straight line is unless you know what a crooked line is. You can't know what is right unless you also know what is wrong. This thing's a mess. But Bond 1, like I said, look up Bond 1, the first definition. You can go down to, it gives you multiple sections, so there's multiple number 1s, but they all have to do with the same thing. changing, like uh, chemical, or it definitely is tied in with that. But back to Adam and Eve, they had after they had the knowledge of good and evil, like they didn't know they were even naked. They didn't know they weren't bound by anything. Like when they say the term ignorance is bliss. Well, they were incompetent. They didn't have any knowledge of it, so they were free. They weren't bound. After they knew now the law of good and evil, now they were bound by it because they knew it. So that's what the devil wanted from the beginning, and that's what he still wants us to today. He wants us bound by the law. So he knows that it's impossible for us to not break the law, so we'd all have to be judged. So that's the whole point of God coming in the flesh, his word being manifest into the flesh. The truth, the literal truth the word of God came into this world as man. Well, since we're all kinsmen of Adam, we're all suffering the same punishment, to toil in this world, in this realm, for this trial, this test. And so when God came here, he came as a blood relative so he could pay the bond. He came as a bondservant, a bondsman, a husband, a husbandman, and he came to pay the debt for us, to give us the new testament, the new contract that we could choose. We had to believe, and believe doesn't just mean I believe this. I believe this pen is real, because the devil and all the fallen angels, they believe Jesus is real. If you look up the etymology or the definitions of believe, it means to care for, to love, to cherish. So that part is different. Flat Earth, the circle of the Earth, the four corners. What that is, I believe, is there's a lot of information on signet rings that they used to wear to make it like a seal, and I believe that's literally what God did. He spoke the world into existence. Out of the clay, out of the dirt, and people in the land, man and land are one. Man comes from the land. That's why we actually rule this place. If they actually ruled this place, it would be over a long time ago. They would just destroy us all. So they have to play this word game to get us to agree, to contract, to consent, and that's what they're doing. They're actually playing by the letter of the law, whereas the spirit of the law is the meaning of the law, what it truly means. But that's how they're always skating on that fine line of, you know like something simple as, if when you were a kid and you're told to cut the grass, you're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then the next day your mom says, okay, it's time to cut the grass, and you said, no, 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 we agreed on tomorrow, not today, mom. That's all they're doing, is playing this word game. And if you look at the codes, they're not even laws. First of all, Congress and all those monkeys, they they're making public law for citizens of the United States. Citizens just means members of a family. So they're making public law for the public, not for private property. And how they trick you is similar to the whole name game. Is the address. It's their name. They named it 123 Deception Street. That's why you see the rich people, like Wayne Manor, or the the Rothschild Estate, or you know what I mean, the Rockefeller Plaza, or they name it. You know what I mean? That's their names because it's their property. They don't use the street address. They may use it for mailing purposes, but other than that, you know. So when you're in court, you're not talking about the physical property that's yours. You're talking about something they named, and again, they named it. It's their name. You're saying your property is their name, so that's the joinder or suretyship. Um, Type that word into a King James word search, like surety or suretyship, and you'll see, how we're warned about that. Um, I don't know. I know I'm all over the place. I'm limited on time today, but I don't know if this is still recording. Yeah, it is. So, what I believe was with the God literally made he used his ring Is that a wedding ring too? I don't know. But he sealed the world in the clay or in the wax, and that's what the flat Earth with the upturned edges, corners, is. It was literally God's seal, and a seal, means a mark, like mark of the beast. Uh, Mark means like currency. They're marks. Look up the word mark and read all the definitions. It's insane. But I'm trying to tell you this is 100% true. Just look up any word. The word doctor. Look up the word doctor. It'll say to, repair in a makeshift manner, to deceive. I mean, it's crazy. You start looking up the meanings and seeing all these words. And, like, they love the synonym game out in the world. Like, if they're saying a speech and they're talking about the people, the public, America, the United States, like, everyone's assume, Assyrian plus Sumerian, assume you're liable for an assumption. A presumption is just a mistake, it's an error, it's a boo boo. But assumptions you're liable for. And they're causing us to assume that all four of those descriptions were talking about the same group of people, and it's not. America, what America? North America, South America, Middle America, Central America. Obama, when he said he was born in Hawaii. Well, there's a Hawaii in Kenya too. He didn't say he was born in the United States, Hawaii. He said he was born in Hawaii, and maybe he was, because there's a place near Hawaii, Kenya. That's the Gates of Hell National Park. And that's just an example. You start looking at it, and it's a childish word game. That's why Jesus is the Word. So of course our enemy is going to come at us with words, you know, and we're being bound by our own word. And it says that in the Bible. I forget the verse, but it says we will be taken by our own words, by our own mouth, by our own tongue. Like, it warns us this stuff. And I have all this written down. Making this video was just kind of spur of the moment. And like I said, I don't know where I'm going to put this book at. The Word of God, hidden in plain sight. I mean, even the word angel. I've talked about this before. You look up angel, and one of the definitions literally says a financial backer of a political campaign or a dramatic production. They order out of chaos. Order. We know what that means on the surface, but the true meaning, order, means one of the 9 choirs or sects, or one of the nine groups of angels. And chaos literally means the abyss. So one of the 9 orders, one of the 9 choirs of angels out of the abyss. So who are they talking about? Who do they worship? The group of angels and that are in the abyss right now? Apollyon? The ones that are locked up that they're trying to free, that are probably going to kill these people first, because they're going to set up the good cop, bad cop scenario. Most likely it is going to be some type of alien invasion. All the movies tell us what's going to happen. That they're going to have some fake aliens that they genetically made, because you look at these greys, these reptilians, these insectoids. Why do they always look like people, like man mixed with something else? Why don't they look totally different? They always look like things here that are mixed together, like, Genesis 6:4, and like they're doing again today, genetic manipulation. They're making these avatars, these shells for these evil spirits to operate in, these vehicles, and the crafts and all that. And that's funny, they call them craft, UFO, craft. Well, craft, magic, everything's in the words. I'm telling you, everything. I have looked up thousands and thousands of words, dictionaries highlighted. Here's just one. Black's common law. That's, just a few of the. That's just one. I'm not making it up. I was activated about 7 years ago, and this is all I do now. I'm running my business probably into the ground, and this is all I do. I'm like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounter of the Third Kind. I'm making mashed potato mountains. Even that. What's that called? Devil's Tower. Reminds me why God actually, divided the languages, confounded the languages at the Tower of Babel, because people are so brainwashed by words, they can't help it. So the only way God saw the easiest way to set us free was to make us not understand, to comprehend what the other people are saying to them. So, like, if you got a notice in the mail and you're thinking it came from some like Sears or Wawa or what a Pepsi sends you a letter. Pepsi didn't send you a letter. What did Pepsi pick up a pen? Is it Mr. or Mrs. Pepsi? It's a man or woman. And that's what they're getting. They're getting us to lower our capacity like the angels did that came here and mated with human women. They're getting us to lower our capacity from that of a man to that of a legal person. Like the Boy Scout Society, if you're in the Boy Scouts, you're bound by certain rules, codes, laws. Well, if you're a legal person, you're bound by certain rules, certain laws, certain codes. So the funny part I was talking about earlier was Congress actually makes the public law for the public when you're out in the public, not on private property. So then a Canadian company, publishing company, Thomson's, gets subcontracted, and they codify the public law, because the public law will be thousands of pages and it's literally enrolled in parchment at the Capitol. So they'll codify this, they'll make it the 2 or 3 sentence code, and that's what is being enforced. The interpretation, what groups of lawyers at a Canadian publishing company believe the public law of the United States reads, their interpretation of it, what they think it means. And even then, it's always nonsense, like any person. It'll always say person. It'll never say man, woman, people, and shall. Like, I shall cut the lawn. Okay, I shall. I'm not going to do it right now. Shall is future tense. I'm not saying I must do it. I shall. Like, one day when we control man, then you shall have to do it. But that's the word games they're playing. But when you're in their court, then, like I said, you're playing that role. You have to be in your court. You would bring your court, like me, the Fusco court, at, legal court on blah, blah, blah Boulevard, whatever their title is. And this is what I found. I'm really late. I gotta be somewhere, but it took me like 5-6 years of looking at all these definitions before I finally looked like that. God left me literally 3 books. I made one prayer, and I've heard dozens of people say they were led to all this stuff by one prayer too, and it was, God, if you're real, please show me the truth. And that was it. Like everything, I didn't believe. I wasn't raised. I didn't think any way possible the Bible could be true. Now I believe it literally word for word. But he left me 3 books on my doorstep, 2 King James Bibles, and a dictionary, which I didn't even figure out, and of course till later why the dictionary. But this is what the word legal, one of the meanings of the word legal, Mosaic law, of or pertaining to the doctrine of salvation by good works rather than through grace. That's what the legal system is. Legal, written, ledger. It's the accounting. They're keeping an accounting of our sin, of our debt, of our trespass. And that's what they want us judged by, the scales. They want us to be balanced out, and most people think, oh, I'm a good person. Well, when you go to court, not, if they said you lied or you stole something, well, you can't go in there and say, well, I didn't steal billions of other things. That doesn't work. They're like, that's great you didn't do that, but you're guilty of stealing, so there's a penalty, and you bound yourself to this law. So that's what Jesus is trying to do, make us believe that we're not bound by this, for that you can be free. There's so much more. I just am really late. God bless you all, and I'll try to make another video soon.